And right now, we are going to speak with a man who I do hope runs for the presidency, named Donald Trump. Mr. Trump, welcome back to the Savage Nation. I thank you for visiting us again.
Good. Thank you, Michael.
Well, look, this is a tough day for all of us, and I don't mean to put you in a corner with a tough question. I'd like to have a light show today, but when I see a terror attack like this going on in Putin's Russia, if you were president, and God forbid this happened in the U.S., what could you do?
Well, you just have to be as tough as you can. You know, no matter what you do, no matter how tough, how smart, how cunning, these maniacs are going to go around and cause havoc. And it's different than it was in the past. I mean, it's always going to be a troublesome world, and there'll always be conflict. But this whole new word called terrorism is taking on a meaning like we've never seen before, Michael, as you understand. I mean, it can be a total coward setting a bomb off in an airport or wherever they want to set off a bomb. And it's not a question of military might, or I guess to a certain extent the police can do an awfully good job, catch people before the act happens. But people will always be able to get through, unfortunately. And
But you know, Mr. Trump, a professor who's Muslim, Walid Faris, says that Moscow's airport massacre must trigger a worldwide response against jihadism. He said this is not happening by chance. This is an international plan. It's designed to upset citizens in all countries. And he said those who are inciting and waging the attacks are, in fact, of jihadi ideological background, of the same nature as al-Qaeda, the Taliban, or the Shabab al-Jihad in Somalia. They're killing their own Muslim citizens in other countries in order to convert them into some radical form of Islam. How in the heck do you fight this?
Well, you fight it with toughness. You fight it with lots of different things. But, you know, Michael, as I was saying, when people have that mind bent, it's going to get through on occasion. So whether it's an airport attack like today in Russia or whatever it may be, I mean, people are going to get through. And I say you shouldn't ever have to live with it. I think you also fight it with great intelligence. You have to, you know, where people do this kind of work, this horrible kind of work, they have neighbors, and they have people that live above them and below them and all over the place. And, you know, ideally, through intelligence, you report these people if you're suspicious, and maybe you get a lot of them. But unfortunately, Michael...
Oh, there you go. Okay, so you're actually saying, when I'm not trying to put words in your mouth, what common sense would dictate. During World War II, or before it, there was Germantown in Upper New York on the Upper East Side. Not all Germans were Nazi sympathizers, but some were. And the FBI used ordinary German-American citizens to tip them off when they thought there was suspicious Nazi-like activity. I don't know if the FBI is doing that today, Mr. Trump.
Well, I'm not sure that they're doing it either, and I guess you and I have lots of complaints with the way things are being run today.
All right, so let's go to something that you probably would have an easier time with. If you were Obama when the Chinese president came here, what would you have done differently?
Well, I would not have had a state dinner. I probably would not have invited him to come here unless they straightened out the situation with respect to the monetary policy. You know, I'm a good businessman, perhaps a great Business Week said the best negotiator. I don't know if that's true. I don't know if it's not true. I don't even talk about it. But the fact is, I've done well in business. I understand business, and you can't compete when somebody's manipulating their currency, just like you can't compete with OPEC when they manipulate the oil prices by not allowing oil to flow freely. So, you know, you have things that are taking place against, this is really war against the United States. But,
right.
You know, they talk about jobs. How do you have jobs when most of our product, as an example, is being made in China? So, well, I would not have had him come here for a state dinner. I really would have had it out before he came here, and if he wasn't able to at least give us an indication that things would change, which, by the way, he didn't do, Michael, even while he was here. He gave us nothing. I mean, they gave us a phony airline order for not very much money, and they said like they're doing a great thing. So they'll give us some billions of dollars in airline orders, and they'll rip us for trillions of dollars, which is
or they'll take the technology, or they will take the technology from GE, along with the construction of the jet engines. They're going to take the technology, as they have been doing. And this is how a nation disappears as an industrial power. So there's no question that you as a businessman, you know, in my book, Trickle Up Poverty, I wrote a chapter where I said, run America like a business, not an empire. I think you would agree with that phrase.
Well, 100%. And I also say a business with great compassion, because I believe in compassion. But what's happening in this country is the opposite of compassion. Everybody's taking our jobs. You know, Ben Bernanke went on last week, And he said 5 or 6 years before the jobs picture comes back. Well, how is it going to be 5 or 6 years when China is building more plants and they're taking our people? When if you have a problem with a credit card, you call up India because they're the ones answering the phone to solve your problems. I mean, it's absolutely insane what's going on. Absolutely insane.
But do you think that a president today, let's say you did decide to run and you became president, there is limited power in the executive branch. There certainly is the executive order and all of that. How do you change business as usual when the lobbyists are so deeply entrenched? Do you think you'd have a better shot at it than others?
Well, the lobbyists are deeply entrenched. And, when I talk about China in very strong terms, it's people call up by the thousands thanking me, and yet politicians never pick up the chant. And, I really believe, I was saying to somebody the other day, why aren't they, picking this up, which I'd love them to do. I don't need credit for it. I'd love them to do it.
That's
and
right.
I guess the answer is lobbyists. They have tremendous lobbyists. OPEC has tremendous lobbyists. I mean, when oil prices, which are going through the roof right now, by the way, but when oil prices go up, nobody attacks OPEC. And the only reason I can think that could happen is because of the lobbyists, because the lobbyists are keeping their politicians nice and quiet.
Yes. Well, now, Mr. Trump has a website entitled shouldtrumprun.com. Now, what has to happen for you to decide that you do want to run?
Well, actually, that's a website that was set up, and we have, I guess, over 300,000 people already just in a very tiny little period of time. I'm going to look at it very seriously. I'm going to make a decision before June. We're doing a big show called The Celebrity Apprentice, which goes on for 2 hours on every Sunday night starting in 3 weeks. And as you know, you're not allowed to run if you have a show going on. So I'm not allowed to run even if I wanted to during the run of the show. But that'll end sometime prior to June, and I'm able to make a decision by that time. And that time is sort of perfect timing anyway. It sort of works out well. I'm going to make a decision. Over the years, people have asked me to do it, and I've never had an interest in doing it. And this time I have a great interest in doing it, beyond great. And I'm thinking about it. We aren't coming from a respected country anymore, Michael. You know that as well.
No kidding. I agree with you. We grew up about the same time. I grew up on the other side of the Union Turnpike from you. But I said to you in Florida, we shared the same snow, the same snowfall, but we do come from the same time period. We know when America was a great nation, and we look at a hollowed-out nation with an industrial base that's been defeated. I believe it could be turned around with proper tariffs and with proper incentives. I don't think it's rocket science to do it. It just takes overcoming the lobbyists and the willpower. And I know, I think you believe the same thing.
It can absolutely turn around. It can turn around quickly. When people manipulate and do lots of other negative things and they take our jobs and then we say, oh, no, we can't tax China, that would be terrible. Try doing business in China. Ask Nucor. Nucor is the biggest steel company in the United States. You ask the folks over at Nucor, how is it doing business in China? They'll tell you it's virtually impossible. It's very, very hard for us to do business there. They come here, they dump all their product, all their crap. And by the way, we make better product than they do. I can tell you because I buy a lot of their product. Not because I want to, Michael, but because I sort of have to. Because we're not making the product anymore. We're not doing product anymore. And ultimately, this isn't about health care because that's a different kind of a thing. That's a service. This is making the product and selling the product. And we don't do anymore. And, free trade is wonderful, but this isn't free trade. This is unfair trade. They're going to make almost $300 billion more than us this year. Think of it, $300 billion in 1 year more than us. And that's not because our companies are weak or anything else. That means that they're just really not allowed. For the most part, they're not allowed to compete in China. And yet,
Donald, I know that I know someone who manufactures a soda drink that they sell in Mexico. And although we're told there are no tariffs going into Mexico, they do have tariffs, but they don't call them tariffs. They make this company take the product off U.S. trucks, put them on Mexican pallets at a fee, put them on Mexican trucks at a higher fee. There are 10 different ways that they impose tariffs on U.S. products in Mexico. We're the only country on earth that seems to invite everyone's products onto our shore without any sort of a tax or bounty upon that sale. I think you would fix that, wouldn't you?
I would totally fix it. And I will tell you, we're being run so stupidly. And I think that's, unfortunately, it's a harsh word, but it's the most accurate word. Whether it's Mexico, whether it's China, whether it's, by the way, South Korea, they make hundreds of billions of dollars of profit. Let's call it profit on this country. And then they get under attack, and we send our Navy over to protect them. And why aren't they paying us for this?
I don't know. Why didn't Iraq pay us back for liberating all the Shia? Pay us in oil, for example. They're sitting on the fourth largest oil reserve in the world, or the second largest. Why are they not paying us in oil?
That was the greatest of all time, where Iraq gets taken over by Saddam Hussein. I mean, when you think of it, I mean, when you, and you're really talking about Kuwait, I think is really what you're talking about, not Iraq, I suspect, right? Are you talking about?
No. Iraq is sitting on the largest oil, one of the second or third largest oil reserves in the world. We liberated them from Saddam Hussein. Where is the reparation for the cost of the war, which is at least $1 trillion? They do have an asset they could pay us with, which is oil.
Michael, when we went in there, people thought we did it for the oil. We weren't smart enough to do it for the oil.
No, I agree with you. Right. The liberals were screaming, no war for oil, no war for oil. And I was saying, hey, that wouldn't be such a bad trade. But we didn't even get oil.
Before, Mike, I thought you were talking about Kuwait, where we go into Kuwait after they get taken over by Saddam Hussein. We go in, we spend our lives, many lives, we spend billions, hundreds of billions of dollars. We put out all the fire with Red Adair. All the fires were put out. He lit every well on fire. We spend all of this money, all of these lives. And then we call the Arab sheiks and we say, you can have your country now. And you know what? Kuwait doesn't like investing now in the United States because their return on investment isn't good enough.
Unbelievable. Well, I know you're busy, but, you know, I saw an article over the weekend coming out of England from the Telegraph, which is a liberal paper, and the article said appeasement is the proper policy toward Confucian China. I thought it was exactly the opposite of what should be done. You don't believe, obviously, that we should appease the Confucians in China, do you?
No, I don't, and I will tell you this. If we ever did, you know, we're rebuilding. I don't know if you realize this, but we're rebuilding China. You go to China, they're building cities that make New York City look like it's obsolete. And we're doing it, very simply. If we ever announce to China that we are not going to buy their products or that we're going to tax their products at a high rate, they will come to us hat in hand and make any deal we want to make. They won't be able to do that. They won't be able to sustain themselves. We have all the cards. You know, they keep saying, oh, gee, they have $900 billion worth of our debt. That's peanuts compared to what the problem is. They have $900 billion. They say, oh, they're our banker, they're our banker. Who cares? If we ever did anything, whether it's you can't buy from China because of their unfair policies and because of the fact they don't let us do business there, or we're going to tax China. We're going to tax Chinese products coming in. Number one, would create tremendous numbers of jobs in the United States. Like, I mean, tremendous. You'll put people to work. Your unemployment will go down so fast. And it's amazing that nobody has the courage to speak up. I mean, I watched this, you know, as you call him, the dictator, but I watched the president of China coming in the other day, and I watched Obama with the warmth and the hugging and like he's a long-lost friend.
Yeah, like his old friend.
And what has he done? He wants to destroy it. These are not our friends. They'd be very happy destroying this country. I mean, these are not our friends.
Donald Trump, I have a question for you. On The Apprentice, have you ever had a show about those who want to be talk show hosts?
Well, I think it's a very, very good idea. We'll have
I can give you some tips on what will work and what won't, because I know from 16 years' experience that program directors who get tapes every day from would-be talk show hosts, they can tell within 4 seconds whether or not that person can captivate an audience. So the day you want to do an apprentice show on talk radio, let me know.
Well, your show is terrific, I have to tell you. I love your show. I think you're really right on. You're a man of common sense. It's not even a question of, you know, where you stand, conservative, liberal. I view you not as a conservative, or I view you as a guy with common sense. It's amazing, the lack of common sense, or maybe it's the lack of guts that our leaders have.
ShouldTrumpRun.com, independently run website. I think people should go to that. There's a lot to talk about, and I hope that you do decide to take the plunge and become the strong man who will fight the straw man who the Republicans are going to put up. Donald Trump, would you stay with us, or you got to run off? Because I got hundreds of people, thousands of people, millions of people who would like to get on the phone and ask you a question or two.
Stay for another segment if you'd like. I would do that gladly.
All right, folks, this is your chance. I'm only going to get to one or two callers. 1-800-449-8255 for Donald Trump. on the Savage Nation. I'll be right back. So, you want to be a talk show host, huh? This is Michael Savage. My guest is Donald Trump, who does not believe that appeasement is the proper policy towards China or anyone else, as a matter of fact. Mr. Trump, welcome back to the Savage Nation.
Well, hello again, Michael.
Well, here's the thing. City takes aim at rich and famous like Alec Baldwin, Derek Jeter, who are fibbing on where they live and all of that. Taxes, taxes, taxes. If you were president, how would you alter federal tax policy, Mr. Trump?
Well, for one thing, I'd be taxing other nations who are making so much money with it.
Bravo. Great answer.
Look at what South Korea is making. If you look at what China is making, if you look at what, frankly, Germany and others are making, they're making hundreds of billions of dollars a year, and I'd be taxing them. I wouldn't be raising taxes for anybody because, number one, I don't know if you realize, we're the highest taxed nation in the world. So I'd be looking really to others. I think I'd have a very serious talk with Iraq, and, you look at what they're doing with the oil. They're sitting on $15 trillion worth of oil. We've spent $1.2 trillion on a war. I don't know. Maybe we should ask them to sort of remember at the beginning when we went in, everyone said we did it for the oil. We weren't that smart. We didn't do it.
But remember George Bush actually said that we're going to get paid back in oil. Of course, nobody reminded him of that a few years into the war. Look, Mexico's another nation sitting on huge oil reserves, and you don't even have to ship it by tanker. You could build a pipeline right into Texas. Why doesn't Mexico pay us for the cost of illegal aliens, the social services? Is that not a rational way to pay back America? Many of the illegal aliens are wonderful people. They're hardworking. God only knows that's true, and it's not just lip service. But the fact of the matter is they don't pay any income tax. Why doesn't Mexico itself, who is basically deporting their illegal aliens by letting them come in here, why doesn't Mexico pay us with oil?
Well, because they don't have to do anything, because we're taking over a lot of their problems. What we're doing for Mexico is unbelievable. You can go nation after nation, and we're really like the dumb whipping post. Then you say to yourself, who are we doing well against? Think of it. What one nation are we doing well against?
Iceland. Yeah, I think Iceland. We're out trading Iceland.
Might be Iceland, yeah, if you look at it.
Yeah, they're selling us fish oil capsules. I think they're making a good profit on that as well. One quick call for Donald Trump on the Savage Nation. Mike in Virginia Beach, quickly fire away. Go ahead, please.
Mr. Trump, speaking
Hello,
of
Mike.
taxes, how do you feel about the fair tax?
When you say the fair tax, you're referring which fair tax, Mike?
The consumption tax.
I feel okay about it. I mean, you look at certain countries, they do it, they live that way. I'm doing business in Europe, and they have, many forms of consumption tax and no income tax, and it is a distribution. Some people like a flat tax. I mean, I'm not sure necessarily how I feel about a flat tax. There's a lot of good reason for it. I will say this.
Mr. Trump, we're flat out of time, and I know you've got to go somewhere. ShouldTrumpRun.com. I hope you make it a regular visit to the Savage Nation, because at least you answer real questions in real ways. Not at least. You do answer questions in real ways. You don't shirk from a question, and you have real answers. And I hope you're the strong man America's been looking for.